Okay, good evening people and welcome to the February edition of the Bliss Catchers. I'll tell you why this is so special, apart from the fact that we have one of the most illustrious families that you'll ever meet sitting with us here. Apart from this achievement, I think everyone who's here deserves a round of applause. So can you give yourselves a round of applause? You know what, this event competes with the India-Pakistan match, which just got underway.
I've been roundly pressed for that.
It competes with Ilayaraja's 1000th film celebration. It competes with P. Chidambaram's book launch at the MMA today. It competes with the Kalakshetra festival. And it competes with the Urur Alcott Kuppam closing event today. And there are perhaps other competitions that we are not aware of.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, I have great joy in welcoming all of you to this edition of the Bliss Catchers. There are some known faces as usual, and there are some new people. So welcome to the Bliss Catcher family. We normally start in this zone of 7 to 7:10, so we're doing great on time. I have here Ram, Gauri, Akila, and Abhinav. A family that needs no introduction. If you have read the invite, I'm not going to go into a formal invitation spree, but I'm possibly going to take that time to walk everyone through the concept behind Bliss Catchers. Why do we do this? And we are into season 2, so I have Bala from Kochi who's here, and Venkat, welcome, please. Wondering, this is season 2 already, so you've been doing it for a long time, and why do we do it? So here's the quick overview. Personally, I'm inspired by Joseph Campbell's philosophy of following your bliss, and I found great value in following that philosophy. Now what's remarkable is he says, and it's true, and it's happened in our lives, and it continues to happen, and I'm sure as we go around and talk to these people, we're going to get those, their life stories and their perspectives on this, that when you follow your bliss, then doors open, things happen. You are connected to people that make things happen for you. And that's how your life gets enriched, and you live a more fuller, happier, blissful life. Now, many of us miss this because we're busy earning a living. We want to do something else, but we end up doing something else because we have to earn a living. And it's also the other side of the story, that sometimes what you deeply believe in and wish for may not happen. And we're going to hear that perspective as well today. So, how do you stay rooted to your bliss when you have to earn a living on one side, and when you have to, face a life situation where things don't happen the way you want them to happen? And these are the conversations that we've been having over the last several months. I enjoy this, curating and hosting this series. I thoroughly enjoy myself sitting with people and having a very lounge-like conversation. Just to give you a perspective, the word bliss may seem like it is connected to people in orange robes, and it is connected to sitting in a particular spot, possibly under a tree, and that there must be a halo. When Sri Kumar is vying with me for that today, there must be a halo around your head, okay? But I disagree. I don't think bliss is any of that. If you can lose yourself to doing what you love doing, that is bliss. And the best way to understand is that bliss, that's why Joseph Campbell says, follow your bliss. He doesn't say choose your bliss. It's a state of choicelessness when you are just there and you're just immersed, you're losing yourself to the moment, and your mind, and the interesting thing about the human mind is it thrives in the past and thrives in the future. So it's steeped in often grief, guilt, worry, anxiety, and if you actually examine, the mind is working only when it's stuck in the past and stuck in the future. It's play forward and move forward into the future. In the present, there is no mind. In the present, you are just immersed with what's happening to you. And you know, having been a cricketer, you would know that. I mean, as performers, you would know that when you're on stage, when you're on the field, when you're doing it, when you're writing something, you just lose yourself to the entire process. So the thought behind understanding bliss has to change. It is not about being somewhere. It's about being where you are, but being who you are. And Javed Akhtar writes that very beautifully. I cannot be him, so I may make a mistake in quoting this in Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara. Mere hone pe mujhe ehsaas ho gaya hai. I have become aware of my being. And that is the bliss that we're talking about. And that's the conversation that I enjoy having with my guests. So, Ram, Gauri, Akila, and Amina. With that little overview, it's now showtime for us. Are you guys ready? So, Ram here, the way I'm going to do it is, I'm just going to keep going around and asking the first round of questions, making possibly bringing some perspectives that I've picked up here and there, and asking you specific questions, and then you answer, and then we go around a second time with a fresh set of questions that will probably flow from what answers you give. Shall we do it? No? And at some point, and we do follow a very strict time, let's say protocol. The 90th minute from the time we start, the session winds up. So at some point, I will throw the questions open for the audience to ask our guests. So I wouldn't have met Ram actually, had it not been for a book that I wrote, which he read, Fall Like a Rose Petal. I don't know if I ever told you this, Ram, but the day when you reached out to me was a pretty depressive day. My father-in-law was in hospital. He needed blood urgently. I had never gone and purchased blood in my life, and I was sitting in a blood bank waiting for the blood to be handed over to me. And I get this message from somebody, Ram Narayan, and I kind of have seen you socially many places, but I've never met you. And for me, I'll be very honest, every part of my life and Vani's life is open for public scrutiny. If somebody reaches me on Facebook, sends me a message, my first question is this a collection agent from a bank? Because my story is that, it's of a bankruptcy, we're dealing with imponderables. So, is Ram Narayan a collection agent from a bank? That was my first question. But because everyone else knows our story, our creditors know that we're fighting cases in court, or we are appearing in court, but the collection agents are a different breed. They don't understand you at all. So I'm very wary of new people, and Ram was one of those new people that day. But it was a wonderful conversation we had on Facebook. We kept chatting with each other because I had that hour to myself waiting for the blood to be given to me. So that's how I know Ram. But there I picked up two qualities about him. One is that he's extremely modest, and he is the Ram Narayan, and yet he reaches out to an unknown person called AVIS and says, "You wrote an amazing book. I could relate a lot to it." We'll talk about why he could relate to it in a little while. And the most recent interaction I had with Ram Narayan was on YouTube, when I saw a video of David Gower, the legendary David Gower. The legendary David Gower comes to Chennai. So he was in Chennai for the Jolly Rovers Club, their 50th year. And he was delivering a talk. And he starts his talk with Ram Narayan, where are you? So that's Ram Narayan for you, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome him here. It's a privilege to be here. I was trying to set this in context. So when I saw Shiva and I saw Ram standing next to each other, I had to go up to Anchal, my daughter, and say, just picture in your mind that Virat Kohli and Ashwin Ravichandran, 30 years from now, are standing in a bookstore and having a conversation. Just for her to get context, so how would it be? it's that kind of moment for us over here. So Ram, but the story of Ram is, there in this beautiful book. It's an amazing book. I'll advise everyone to pick it up and read it. The Third Man. So he calls it the third man. The pun is intended. He was not one of those two people who was selected for the 77-78 tour of Australia. And after that, you had this situation where you were even dropped from the Hyderabad team. And you felt you were at the top of your playing, peak of your game at that time. How do you deal with a situation like that? How did you deal with it? And after that, you've never had the opportunity to play cricket at that level. So how do you, when your bliss is cricket, and when it doesn't happen the way you want it to happen, how did you deal with that? That's my first question.
Thank you so much, AVIS. I was a bank officer and very poor at collecting anything. So you are partly right. Yeah. How did I deal with that? It's any cricketer, my brothers here, and anyone who has competed at that level and has failed to impress the selectors at the highest level, has to deal with a lot of heartbreak, disappointment, and it's not easy. Luckily for me, cricket, as you said, was my bliss, but there were other things which also interested me. First of all, you had a family you came back to, and the atmosphere at home, it was there, and then my interest in reading, music. So those interests also, they offered you an alternative path. But I'm not saying it was easy. It was very, very difficult to deal with. It was very upsetting. I was quite embittered for a while. I couldn't watch cricket for quite some time. When, everyone can't play for India. So I can't say that I should have played for India. But then to be thrown out of every level of cricket almost immediately afterwards was rather difficult to deal with. So that was not easy. But then I think, you have a support system, and you still play cricket. See, if you genuinely love cricket, that is what really saved me. This happened in 1978. I played my last cricket match 20 years later. I continue to play cricket. My brother again, Shivaram Krishnan, who missed out probably in 1981 when he thought he would go to Australia, he went on playing for another 20 years, I think, nearly 20 years. After his final Ranji Trophy match, he was still playing league cricket, scoring probably the first double hundred in Tamil Nadu cricket at the league level. So, if you love the game, love what you're doing, these disappointments really hurt. But that's not the end of it.
That's fantastic. I think there's a very, 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 very important point there. What do you love? Do you love the fame of a cricketer? The glory of having played for the nation? Or do you love the game? What do you love? I think that's the deeper question. And the second point he makes, and I'm going to, when we get to Gauri, we're going to ask, get a perspective from there, is the ecosystem. The family being an important part of your journey in terms of helping you anchor and move forward. And sometimes people are blessed with a family, sometimes you're blessed with a spouse who understands you, sometimes you're not. And you need to find that person or persons that can help you along on that journey. So coming back, one more quick question, Ram. So you said you were embittered.
Yes.
So it's a human emotion to be embittered.
Yes.
Did you ever get into a situation of feeling depressive for a long spell of time? And how did you deal with that at a very practical level?
No, I don't think I was depressed for a long spell of time. It was very momentary, but couldn't watch cricket for a while. It was very difficult for me to see others play when I felt I should.
How did you overcome that?
I don't know. I took time off. I took time away from cricket to, listen to music, read, and I hadn't started writing at that time, not on a regular basis. But I read a lot, and then my children, my daughter was born and my son wasn't born yet. And at home, it didn't matter who you are, you know. Whether you played cricket or not, I don't think it mattered one bit. They were supportive of me when I played cricket and I had my ambitions. But I don't think it mattered. I was the same Ramnarayan to them. And luckily for me, my wife had her own career to pursue. She was teaching and, you know, we had a lot of things to share, you know. I would also support her in her work. So I think, I can't remember exactly how you overcome this kind of feeling, but then getting involved in other people's lives, getting involved in other problems of life. We had the problem of running a family on a day-to-day basis anyway, you know. So
right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I think there's another very valid point here, so I'll pick it up very quickly. The best way to deal with stuff that we don't want in our life, the best way to deal with it is to understand the futility of resisting it. Life is not going to give you everything that you want. Not everything is going to happen the way you want it to happen. So the best way to deal with it is not to get into, you know, nobody will be depressed if they understand the futility of depression as a means, as an emotion. But it's normal to get depressed. So allow the depression to come in, understand it, hold it and let it go. And I'm glad you said that you can't say a defining moment where it changed and how the, you know, getting on with life, moving on with the everyday humdrum of life really helps you, right? Fascinating, good. Thank you, Ram, and we'll come back to you. I have more questions for you, but Gauri, let me talk about Gauri a little bit here. So we have a friend called Minal Prabhu from your school, apparently, and she wrote on my Facebook wall that Gauri and I went to school together. She was my senior, and she was special even then. So that's Gauri for you. I think she doesn't need an introduction. In fact, very, very honestly, when Ram pinged me on Facebook, the first conversation in the blood bank that I had with him, I said, "You are Gauri's husband, right?" that was the first reaction. So that's Gauri. She is different. And one of the most beautiful things that connects back to this conversation that we are having is that she's written an amazing book called Past Forward about 6 artists and tracing their childhood. It's a fascinating book. And in that book, she writes in the preface, she writes, I was trying to understand, I'm trying to place the exact words here. I was trying to understand who am I writing this book for. I've written this book for Akila, for Abhinav, for my sister Ruku, but most importantly, I have written it for myself. And that is bliss. And so that's, you know, something that I picked up from, you know, reading that book long ago and going back to it in preparation for today's conversation. So Gauri, my first question to you is, you've faced, well, between you and Ram, you've seen a lot of life and you've faced a lot of upheavals, particularly on the career front. You're an accomplished PhD, you have a PhD in something very eclectic, comparative aesthetics, but
my husband educated me.
So how did you, you moved from Chennai to Hyderabad, you were trying to put together your academic career there, and then you came back to Chennai, and then you found your career as a journalist, and then you got into what you're doing now, which is theatre and art and performing arts. So how does one deal with continuous upheavals and disruptions, if I can call them? Because many people like a very linear path. That's why the question is coming.
I don't think people like linear paths today. I think we were just talking about it in the car as we came. People keep jumping from job to job, city to city, marriage to marriage, partnership to partnership. There is no steady holding on to something and growing old with it anymore, okay? So I guess marriage is pretty long. But apart from that, I think we have kind of jumped from one thing to another. But I just wanted to say about Fast Forward. This is something that I perhaps haven't shared with anybody except my children and of course my husband. Fact is, see, when you're working, when you keep on changing the things you do, I mean, I was so completely involved in my career as a teacher, as a professor, as a lecturer in a college in Hyderabad. I loved Hyderabad. I had my friends there. I was really looking forward to a great future as an academician. When suddenly Ram decided to come to Madras, and then in those days, the idea of for a wife living alone in a different city, I think they didn't exist for me anyway. You know, I mean, see, Rama went, Sita went, whether she liked it or not. I mean, that was the attitude in those days. Today, I might have done something different. So I came here and then, okay, I won't go into the finding of the job and stuff like that. But in a long career, 23 years in the Hindu, you know, you're not going to have a happy time. There will be times when you will be recognized and appreciated a lot. And so your boss will think that you're, you know, you'll be the sun and the moon for your boss. There'll be other times when your boss will, you'll be invisible for your boss. You'll be invisible for the people. This happens so often, you know. In anyone who has worked for a long time, office politics, I mean, this is universal. It happens all the time. Now, how do you deal with that? For me, I was very, very lucky. I was completely besotted with my children. I don't know if I am besotted with them now. Am I? Okay, I was. Yeah, okay. I was totally besotted with my children. And my husband was my friend, so I could discuss anything with him. So that was it was wonderful. Come home and, you know, you look at your child and you play with your child. I don't think anything can, this Atmananda and Brahmananda, everything every mother experiences when the child is small, or the father also, I think. That's a great plus for everyone, I think, every parent. The second thing is, I've always, the thing that I wanted to share with you is that I think when things are not going right for you in your main avocation, whether you're working in a college or whether you're working in a newspaper office, whatever you're doing, things will not always go well for you. What do? I have always found some other interests which I've followed with great passion. Fast forward, I wrote when I was really having a very bad time in the office. Yeah, I had such a bad time that I said, okay, I can't possibly deal with this all the time. This is going to happen. It may change, it may not change. I might live in outer Siberia all my life in this Hindu office. But anyway, I'm getting my paycheck every month. So what do? I have to keep myself engaged. I have to be happy. I can't dictate somebody else, my boss or my circumstances or my office. They cannot dictate to me whether I should be happy or not. I should be happy in spite of it's cocking a snook at things that go against you, I guess. And I started writing this fast forward. And then I got so completely lost in the lives of these 6 different artists. You know, amazingly, there's one common thing among all the 6 artists. They come from different backgrounds and different regions of India. There's M.S. Sublakshmi, Amjad Ali Khan, R.K. Lakshman, Keruchan Mahapatra, Amjad Ali, I mentioned them, right? Vijay Tendulkar. What is M.F. Hussain? So what's common between these people? All of them had very difficult childhood. All of them had a very difficult childhood and they really struggled to come up. So to understand, you know, we as journalists, we meet these people at the peak of their fame. You know, we meet them when they are stars. You go and talk to them, how did you do this magnificent thing you did? You got this wonderful award. You did this great creative thing. You wrote this great book. But when you look back in their childhood, you find out that that is a time that they were not recognized. They were having such a tough time as people coming from very middle class, lower middle class backgrounds, most of them, with the exception of R.K. Lakshman. So and Amjad Ali Khan had a very old father with whom he had a very difficult time. So how did they deal with the problems of their childhood, you know? And that really inspired me, just to look at that they succeeded. And so I didn't plan to do it like that. I just did it to distract my mind in order to concentrate on doing something creative. And this is what I've done all my life. Whenever I found things going badly in the main field in which I'm working, I've always tried to find some other interest. It can be embroidery, it can be starting a website on making different kinds of sambar across India. It can be anything, but you should be really interested in it and you should really want to spend, you should die to want to do it, you know. You should keep on saying, okay, I have to get back to my website. I have to look at that special sambar that was made in Kalayur village down in Tanjavur. I have to get the ingredients and put it up there. So if you have that interest in what you're doing, that other thing that you're doing, success or failure in your main avocation will not matter so much.
So beautiful. I think that's very well articulated. I think this is something that we all miss. We fail to understand that we can be happy despite our circumstances. And we can't control the circumstances, but we can control how we are feeling and dealing with it. And I think you articulated it very well with a fine overview of the common thread between the 6 people that you wrote about. I have a question for you. One more before I move to Akila.
Yeah.
So, obviously, when Ram's career was in, he was going through his upheavals, and the journalist job was really bringing in the stability that the family needed. And then after that, Ram, you tried a few jobs as well, and you tried a business that didn't do too well. So all along there, Gauri, you had the stability of a paycheck, let's call it that, But from there, moving on to the body of work that you have created now in the field of art and theatre, how did that inspiration come? I mean, anybody you must have been what, in your 40s when you started diving?
I had another
deep
bad patch in the office, so I started writing a play.
That's how it happened.
But let me also say that I've had wonderful times in the office.
I think you need to turn on that mic. Maybe it's off.
Okay. I just want to say that I had such an extraordinarily happy time in the Hindu. I don't think anybody else could have had, at least I had a fabulous time. And all that I am today, the Hindu opened so many doors for me. I traveled to small villages, to big cities. At some point, I just stopped doing these 5-star hotel press interviews, So going to really small places, one out of the way Muslim village outside Lucknow, and small village in Andhra, Marlapudi, things like that. It opened my mind to this wonderful country that we have, the diversity of cultures we have, and the sufferings of the people. I don't think we have any right to feel sorry for ourselves. When we see that in this country, 90% of the people are living really below poverty line, whatever Modi may say even today. So that is one of those things that I think made me minimize the problems that we had. No, it didn't minimize. You see it against the world in which you live.
So it's a relative view.
You see it against the world in which you live. Yes, the problem that you have is a major problem. We've had some really bad times, I don't deny that. But we can't over them. How? I don't know.
So your first play was written in that time when you were having the highest stress.
No, we didn't have any problems in the home front, nor really.
No, at the work front. I mean,
I won't say it was a major problem or anything. There's a stasis when you're working,
right,
and you reach a certain level of stasis, and the work doesn't. At that particular time, it doesn't excite you. A little later, a year later, you might find something more exciting. So that's how it happened. And I don't know, it take too long, but I'll just summarize it. A wonderful poet called Arun Kolarkar died that year, and I wanted to write an obituary, and my boss asked me, who is Arun Kolarkar? My immediate boss, not the Hindu top management. And then I thought that, this is one of the greatest poets of India, 20th century, nobody knows about him. So I went back and thought about all the questions that I wanted to ask Arun Kolarkar, and I wrote all the answers myself, and that became a play. So it became a play. And it became a play about a very reclusive man who deliberately wanted to live completely isolated and didn't want to connect with society, and yet he wrote things which really reflect Bombay, the streets of Bombay, there being nothing, which is also universal. It could be the street of New York, it could be the street of Washington, it could be anything. And who could go very deep into a great legend of the Mahabharata and present it in a very contemporary way. So, he could mythicize modern Bombay, and then he could contemporize a great old legend. So a poet with that kind of vision, I wrote a play about him because I didn't write an obituary, and that's how I started writing plays. Yeah, so all these things are accidents, I think. I don't think we do them in a very planned way, except that I think we catch our bliss, that's a new phrase for me now. I've just learned that today. We catch our bliss when we are ready for adventure.
beautiful. In fact, Joseph Campbell says this. I just complete this around. Joseph Campbell says this, that the reward is the adventure. The adventure is the reward. So you catch your bliss when you're ready for adventure. I think that's a memorable quote, and we'll use it more often on our show. Yes. Yes. Now you wanted to add something?
No. I want to say the bliss catches you. It's not. You don't catch me bliss.
I think it's like when the student is ready, the teacher shall appear. It's like that. So if you're ready and you're tuned, but most of our, it's like a dish antenna. You cannot watch Tata Sky if your dish is pointing to Dish TV, and you have a Tata Sky subscription. It won't catch the signal. So if you're looking at earning your living all the time, you won't live. You got to turn the dish towards the aspect of living. One other point I picked up from what she had to share. There are some seats in the front, you could move up here, please. You won't be disturbing us. Please feel comfortable. So, one other point I picked up from Gauri is that you've got to be creative. I think the idea of doing something around an obituary turning into a play, I think is an immensely creative idea. And Vani and I, we often talk about this. I think in our lowest times, we have come up with the most creative programs, including Bliss Catchers. Was launched out of, because we're doing nothing. There's no business. There's no money. Nobody's calling us. So why don't we get out and talk to people? And that's how the Bliss Catchers was born. So I think being creative is a very integral part of being who you are. And we are all capable of that creativity, not just us sitting out here. I think any of you out there or anybody out there. So I'm now going to move to Akila. I'm going to introduce Akila to you through something she's done recently. So I'm going to play a track which was so beautiful when we heard it the first time. We heard it live, and we they've also done a recording of the track now. So I'm going to play the recorded track. Listen to it. It's beautiful. It'll take about 3 minutes. So go through that experience. Sit back, relax, and soak in Akila Ramnarayan. There you are. Oh, I hope the audio is good enough.
Sharing
Shreyo Bhuyat Sakala Jana.
Shreyo Bhuyat, Shreyo Bhuyat,
Shreyo Bhuyat Sakala Jana. Shreyo Bhuyat Sakala Jana. Shreyo Bhuyat Sakala Jana. Shreyo Bhuyat Sakala Jana. So here's a quiz question. Okay, for all of you Chennai music festival goers, religious music festival goers, and people who track the Chennai music scene, no mugs for this. Okay, the mug questions are coming later. Okay, the question is, who sang the John Lennon version with Akila? Vedant Bharadwaj is the answer, right? Absolutely. So no mugs, of course. It was a sitter. Okay. So that's Akila Ramnarayan for you, ladies and gentlemen. And Akila, so my question to you is, thank you for that beautiful rendition. I fell in love with it the first time I heard it at the Hindu Late for Life festival where you and your mom performed. And Vedant was a good friend. And then when the studio recording came up, I just thought then and there I downloaded it. So, what would this world have lost if we did not have Akila Ramnarayan come back from the US? That's my question to you. This is what we would have lost. So here's a lady who found the weight of her family's illustrious lineage difficult to handle, and in a rebellious moment decided to go away from all of this, and then came back. So two straightforward questions. What was that rebellion about? Why you went away? And how did the switch happen? How did you change gears and think, or did you sit back and think, or was it a aha moment, or was it over a slow period of time that you decided to come back? So she's, by the way, a PhD in post-colonial studies, focusing on Southeast Asia? South Asia, okay. And so you gave it all up, and you came here. So that story is what we want to hear.
Rebellion is a complex thing. And in my case, I think I was only answering to myself. I was rebelling against myself. I don't think at any point in my life I felt my family, who I adore, my extended family is here, my immediate family is here. I don't think I ever felt that they were prescriptive. Nobody ever held a gun to my head and said, do this, do that. In fact, it was the opposite. We were encouraged to go find what it was that made us happy. I don't think at any point in my life when I made an unconventional choice, I was never rebuked. I was only applauded for it by my parents, and my brother is incredibly supportive. So I think it was more trying to figure out who I was. I mean, there were all these giants around me, in every field, in sports, in the arts, in literature. So anything I did felt very small in comparison. So it wasn't so much wanting to be a rock star, though I did want that as a teenager.
Oh, you
but
did? Okay.
yeah, I wanted to be a rock star.
You would here. You can still be one. And you would be one.
I'm just kidding. No, but I think I just went to figure out who I am. And it's not very original actually. I think everybody does this in one way or the other. You have to go away in order to realize that home is where you belong. It's kind of an unoriginal story.
I think that's, it's not, it may seem unoriginal, but not many people do it with complete consciousness or glee, okay? I don't think it can be done with glee. When the search is happening, you're still very confused and you're not knowing where you're going to arrive.
But I think
the point, yeah, it is exciting. And I'm pausing her here for a second to tell us all that it is perfectly fine to search for who you are. Many people think that search means something is wrong with us. You know, and this is not the who am I question that is going to take us to Tiruvannamalai and make us sit on top of a rock. That's also a search. But this who am I is, you know, what are you when you lose yourself? What do you want to lose yourself to? And I think that's a very, very natural human emotion, desire, if you want to call it. It took me 35 years to find that for myself. And when I found it, I knew that no matter what, this is the only thing I wanted to do, which is work with, share experiences and tell stories to audiences. And that's what keeps me going. That's what wakes me up every morning. So it's perfectly fine. So thank you for sharing that. But how did the switch happen? So you were there, you had an established career as an academician, as a research scholar, you were teaching. So how did you, was it a slow process? Was it an aha moment? Was it like?
It was a slow process. I mean, I'm not somebody who makes decisions in a hurry. So I think I made up my mind in 2009 and I moved in 2011. So I knew it would be a difficult thing to do, but the key thing for me was that all the people who I trust, my mentors and my very close friends and my family, nobody was surprised when I said I wanted to go back. I went to my PhD advisor, terrified that he'd say, "What's wrong with you? You'll get tenure in a year. Don't screw up your life. Stay here." But he said, "It sounds like the most logical thing in the world for you to do." So in that sense, I got
that's
a
a very supportive perspective.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, people who know me well and who know what my what my goals are in life, all seem to think that it was the best decision. So that was very helpful. You need community. You can't make these decisions alone.
Now, do you feel good about the fact that among the giants around you in the family, the illustrious giants around you in the family, you have a body of work for yourself? Does that count at all now?
No, I'm riddled with self-doubt as always. But the search keeps me in the game. No, I can't think about that. You just have to do the work. The work has to speak for itself. It has to speak to you.
So it's a good point there that I'm riddled with self-doubt. We met SP Balasubramaniam recently for a series I'm writing on happiness conversations, and I asked him, so what makes you get up each day? And he said, I get up each day to enjoy myself, and my singing helps me enjoy. நான் நல்லா பாடுறேனா சார்? என்ன சார் நீங்க இவ்வளவு பெரிய ஆளு இப்படி கேட்கலாமா சார்? இல்ல தெரிஞ்சுக்கணும்ப்பா, ஏன்னா I can also be wrong, I can also be singing badly, so I need to know if I'm consistent. So I think that self-doubt is a very natural feeling. What do you think when you look back as do you at all look back? That's the question. But when you do look back, do you compare the life that you've given up in the US to the life that you're having here? I'm talking about the career, the professional side of your life.
Yes and no. I don't miss living in the US. I've been back twice since I moved back, and when I was there, it didn't feel like I wanted to return. That was a good, healthy sign. I wasn't sure that it was going to be the case. So that's one thing. The second thing is, there are things I miss, but I want to foster them here. Such as, the life of the mind, the way it was the way it was important beyond personalities, but beyond achievements. The pursuit of the idea was important, at least among the people I respected. And in any field, I think the pursuit of idea, whether you're in a corporate, in an IT company, or you're a musician, or whatever it is in between, that ability to put the vision and the idea first is key, and I want to bring some of that back here.
Okay, fantastic. That's awesome. Thank you so much. We'll come back to you, and let's move to Abhinav over here. So Abhinav is the Ramnarayan that I met only today. So it normally doesn't happen on my Bliss Catchers show. We do meet people, but he lives in London, and he's came back today to be with us on this on this show. So thank you, Abhinav. Abhinav is a journalist, a writer, and I'm not being gender biased here, but I don't find too many writers of children's books who are men. So, to that extent, that's one of the questions.
I just did it for the money, by the way.
Oh, you did it for the money? Okay. Is the money good there?
No, it was rubbish, but at the time I was 17 and it seemed really good. But looking back, I'm like, why did I take the royalties?
Abhinav has got, a very unique interest. I mean, he loves history, and he plays video games, which, like Tomb Raider, you said?
Yeah, Tomb Raider and Assassin's Creed, yes.
Assassin's Creed. So I didn't even know there were video games based on history. So, but that was kind of inspiring because my children often tell me that I'm not that sort of a guy, and maybe I should try that out. Maybe I like it. But I was very bad at history in school. So maybe you get better with history with growing age. I don't know. Let me try that. So Abhinav, thank you for being here. My question to you is: look at them. They both are PhDs. Okay. Then all three of you are gold medalists. Okay. So Ram is the odd one out. You neither have a PhD nor a gold medal. Okay.
Second attempt தான் பாஸ் பண்ணேன்.
நான் பாஸ் பண்ணேன்னு சொல்லி நான் மறந்துட்டேன். நாங்க பாருங்க ஒரே பிளான் பண்ணதுக்கு ஒரே மாதிரி சட்டம் வேற போட்டுருக்கோம். So did you have to deal with the weight of the family's legacy at any time? Did that strike you that you have to be there? So not from a parental point of view. It's, I mean, obviously Gauri and Ram are wonderful parents who don't impose, don't prescribe. But did you feel it, and why did you choose to become a journalist?
I certainly felt the weight of that legacy. I still do to an extent when I'm here.
How does it feel? Can you just help us understand how does it feel? When we say weight of the legacy, what are we talking about?
So I suppose if I write a short story, for example, and I've written several short stories, I look at it and I have people in my immediate vicinity who have written great stories. I'm talking about all three of them. And so you become, it's very good to be critical of yourself because then you produce good work. But at some stage, I think it starts becoming counterproductive and you start saying, oh, this is just nonsense. Forget it, and you've been it. So it's so when you have people around you who have achieved quite a lot, and I think we've all heard today how much they have achieved. It is sometimes difficult because you set standards for yourself that are sometimes impossible to reach. So to that extent, I did feel the weight of, and it's not just my immediate family, it's also Kalki, my great-grandfather who's written great novels, and various people in my family have achieved various things, and it was really good to get away from all of that and go to a different country where nobody knew me, and people judged me from scratch. And the other thing I noticed when I went to England is that very often, when I achieve something, I immediately think of, oh, what's my friend Shinjin going to say? What's my friend Sharon going to say? And you judge yourself based on the responses of people around you. And when you go to a place like England, which is, I love England to death, but where people don't actually care about your achievements as much, then it becomes all about satisfying yourself and about meeting your own standards. There's nobody around you who cares if you've got a great mark in an exam. Nobody cares. So you're doing it only for yourself. And at that point, I decided something which was quite a revolutionary thought for me when I was doing my master's in England, which was, my master's was not important. I decided to hell with this. In the sense that I did enough to pass because I needed that to get my visa to stay in the country. But I decided this academic achievement is completely meaningless for me. And so I did enough to pass and I pursued a career, I pursued other things. And so there you go.
That's awesome. That's a very important point. I think most of us wedded to the academic discipline miss the fact that the education lies in the experience and not in the piece of paper that we will get at the end. And the value that the experience, the journey of learning is more powerful. And I can say that with confidence because I don't even know where my degree certificates are. So,
yeah, I like telling people that I learned more from working as a night porter in a hotel and as a waiter in a Pakistani restaurant than I did from my master's degree.
Awesome, awesome. So you did multiple things.
Well, I mean, to put the food on the table
Right,
while I was
obviously,
studying.
right. What about your decision to become a journalist? Do you think it's at this point in your life, it's something that you were just pursuing to feel the field out? Or
No, I had a Eureka moment. I had a Eureka moment.
Oh, you did? So
I did. I was inspired by P. Sainath, who was a journalist with the Hindu and Times of India's home.
Right.
And he came and spoke at Loyola College, where I was studying, and he gave a beautiful speech. He was a brilliant speaker. And he gave a beautiful speech, and at the end of which he talked about poverty in India and how a lot of people ignore poverty in India. And then right at the end, he told the story about Emperor Nero in ancient Rome, and how apparently, and actually I don't think the story is true, but anyway, at the time I believed him. Apparently they crucified Christians around the perimeter of Nero's grounds and set them afire, and then they had parties by the light of that fire where these people were burning. So quite a gruesome image. And he said that Nero was a madman, so forget Nero. But how can the guests at that party pop another fig into their mouth while people are being burnt alive around them? And he said we are Nero's guests because of all the poverty around us, and we're not doing anything about it. Which as a young man, that was one of the most inspiring things I've ever heard. And I said, I'm going to be a journalist, I'm going to save the world. Since then,
how has that worldview changed?
Completely changed. Well, first of all, I felt that...
I hope you don't watch television in India.
First of all, I think the truth is much more complex than we're all demons for ignoring the poverty around. I don't really think that's true anymore. I don't think of ourselves as Nero's guests anymore. We're all compassionate people, and the world is a complex place, and that learning comes only after several years. So I realized at one point that all those reasons for becoming a journalist no longer exist. And when I turned about 27, 28, I was like, I have no idea why I'm a journalist. Having gone through all of this and gone to a different country and worked really hard and mixed milk with water to make it last and all of that, I suddenly realized, you know what, I actually don't know why I'm a journalist. I have no idea why. So I had to rebuild the whole sort of rationale behind my life. And now it's much more simple. I went back to what I used to do as a child. As a child, I used to write novels when I was 4 or 5 years old and staple them together and write the copyright and all that sort of thing. And then I realized, okay, probably my catching my bliss, I suppose, is about writing and writing novels. And now I've gone away completely from that whole save the world thing, completely. And now I'm kind of living in the moment and just doing stuff that I enjoy. I love European history. And I write about the European economy. So I feel, which is actually it is European history, except it's happening right now. And so I write about the European economy for my day job. I travel around Europe as much as I can afford and look at the sort of historical, the churches and so on, and I absolutely love all of that. And of course, one of the things I do, which I mentioned to you, is I play video games which are there are some video games which are based on European history, and yeah, I play those as well. So everything I do is centered around that. That's my fascination at the moment, and I'm living in the moment and enjoying
beautiful.
it.
Abhinav was having a lot of concern about why he's been asked to join us this evening, and he was wondering, what is it that I'm going to talk about? At least that's what Ram told me. So I want to thank you for being here, because what he said just now is something very, very important. You will reach that point when you will look for reason for what you're doing. And there are two ways of dealing with it. Either you create a better, stronger reason for doing what you're doing, or you stop doing what you're doing. And I've been a journalist and I've quit journalism. I've been a corporate animal and I quit that line. I've been a ambitious entrepreneur and I came crashing down. And now when I look back, and I possibly will never want to, even if our financial fortunes turn around, it's not likely that I'm going to go back and put up a McKinsey kind of a firm that I once dreamt of. So it's perfectly fine for your idea of life to evolve, because that is the idea of the journey. The scenery changes, the person changes, the season changes. So thank you. I think you articulated that very well. I really loved the way you were very honest about it, and I think that's very, very good. Thank you. And since this is the first time we have an entire family, and we have, I mean, they're children, yes, but they're adults and individuals in their own way. So I'm going to come back to the parents here. It's not often that you have children pay parents a compliment that parents have not been prescriptive. Our parents have let us be, let us go do what we want, never breathe down our neck. You come from a generation, I'm sorry to make you both look very old, but you come from a generation, you come from a generation that normally does just the opposite. Prescribes, instructs, directs, breathes down people's necks. How did you choose not to do it, or why did you choose not to do it? Because it's important, because many people who come to our event do have this confusion, should I come in my children's way or should I not?
Speaking for myself, my parents were that they encouraged us to do what we want. They never breathe down our necks. They never told us this is what you should do. So I think it came pretty naturally to me. And that's the answer.
I grew up in a very strange household, partly extremely modern and extremely traditional, and I was completely confused when I was growing up. So, and I was constantly told that I must do what I want to do and constantly prevented from doing what I wanted to do. So I was so confused. I mean, everybody is an individualist and rather crazy in my very small family. So I decided that when I had children, I was going to be completely different and I was going to just be their friend. And I didn't want them to have the confusions I faced, but I know they face other confusions. So that's absolutely natural. I just wanted to add one thing to the beginning when I was talking about it. Two things. One is that I don't know if you can do a lot of things that I talked about if you don't have a strong family base, just looking at Shiv and Hasta and Sharda make me realize that you need to have that family support and you need to have children's support. Otherwise, I think life it's very, very difficult. I was very lucky. That's the first thing I wanted to say. Second, I think I might have said that if I had not been a journalist, I would not have been in the venue at the time in which I was a journalist, where everything was encouraged. You were encouraged to discover, you were encouraged to explore. Today, I think it's much more difficult for the young journalists. So, and you had the space to write what you wanted to write. You had the freedom. So that develops your mind. I was just plain lucky.
I think that brings us to an interesting point which Steve Jobs made very famous. He said you can only connect the dots backwards. So things happen to you with a reason. You're put in situations and contexts with a reason. It may seem like everything is not working out the way you wanted to work out, but if you are experiencing that sense of being, enjoying who you are, then the doors will open, and when you reach a destination and arrive at a point, you look back, you will be able to connect the dots. And I think that's what I'm picking up from what you're saying, Gauri.
I'm not sure about what, I don't know if that's true, because supposing I had children who were resentful of my going to work, it wouldn't have happened. I mean, I would have had to adjust. After all, your children are your first priority. I mean, they didn't ask to be born, you brought them into the world. So, not once did either of them resent my going out to work or all the time that it took, even at home, to do the kind of work I was doing. I had no hours, nothing fixed, and it was not, 9 to 5. So, and travel, constant travel, and not once. They were both proud of the fact that their parents were working and were fulfilling themselves. I don't know if we did anything to foster that in their mind or whether it was just God's gift.
That reminded me of something. When Gauri started singing with MS Sublakshmi and the vocal accompanist, so Abhinav was 3 years old, maybe 4 years old. Took him with her to Bangalore for a concert. So at the end of the concert, she said, "Abhinav, எப்படி இருந்தது கச்சேரி நல்லா இருந்ததா? ரொம்ப நல்லா இருந்தது. அந்த பாட்டி ரொம்ப லவுடா பாடின உன் குரலே கேட்கல."
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to come to the audience in just a moment, but we're going to do a quick rapid fire with the 4 of you. Just one question, the same question for all 4 of you. So anybody can start and then quickly pass it on. It's a quick one. How do you deal? Do you deal with insecurity at all, and how do you deal with it?
Yes, I do deal with insecurity, and I deal with it by trying to live an examined life, holding up a mirror to myself and asking where it comes from. And I also deal with it by thinking of it as learning.
And have you, when you reflect back on an incident that has made you insecure, and it has passed, do you feel the benefit of the learning emerge stronger there?
Yeah, I think learning is cyclical. It's not linear, but each moment teaches you something about yourself that you can think about in the future when you come across when you're in another difficult situation.
Good start there. Yes, Amina. Do you deal
my
with
main insecurities are mostly about my weight, so I try to. That's pretty much my main insecurity. So I have a constant battle with diet and exercise. Yeah.
Okay, and that part of the picture that we cropped.
Exactly.
Okay, Ram.
Yeah, the only time I really felt insecure was when I was working for State Bank of India. And I had a torrid time at work. Every day was, an examination. Every day was, I felt that I was on the verge of some disaster. So other than that, I don't think I've ever felt insecure in my life. Right
Is
now,
that the reason why you quit State Bank?
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's a man who belongs to that generation when being a probationary officer in a nationalized bank was, I don't know if Infosys counts in the marriage market anymore, but in those days SBI would have counted phenomenally.
Yeah, but I got the job after I married. I didn't have a job and
So you dealt with that insecurity by quitting that job. You just,
yeah. And it wasn't easy to. The year was 1976. It was almost impossible to quit a job like that and find another. I was very, very lucky to find one. My cricket helped me, but otherwise, I don't think you could move laterally anywhere. It was impossible, literally impossible. I was very lucky that I got away at that time.
And Gauri.
I don't know the answer to this question. I don't know how I deal with my insecurities. I know that I have a wild tantrum when I fight with my husband, when I feel insecure. And then I read a very, very good book. And I'm alright.
That's a nice way. That's therapeutic. Thank you.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, please.
I think seeking out people who make you feel secure is also important. Not to make you feel good about something that you haven't done, about a weakness, but just people who love you unconditionally. And they're all right here. And my father's siblings, it was like having 6 sets of parents. So I think back to that time when, the love, you try to go where there's unconditional love and you can feel it too. And then the insecurities melt away.
Absolutely. I think that's a very valid point. Here we have, I thought I saw Kavithalaya Krishnan sitting somewhere here. There is. So this Bliss Catcher event is special for another reason. That we have this edition's guests over here. We have a past edition guest, Kavithalaya Krishnan, and we have Rakesh from the previous edition, January, over here. And then we have a future edition guest also over here. So this is a unique event where there's a confluence. And why I went to Kavithalaya Krishnan was, he said that it's very important to have an ecosystem. And Ram started with that, Akhila brought it up again, Gauri talked about it, the ecosystem of the family being very, very integral to dealing with your insecurities. On any journey, there will be air pockets. So what the air pockets, when a plane hits an air pocket, what does the captain announce? He says, fasten your seatbelts and let me do my job. And I think we got to deal with our insecurities that way. Just fasten your seatbelts, don't try to get into the way of life. You got to let it go. And melting is a nice word. I think it just dissolves. The worst never happens. So thank you so much. Over to you, the audience, for questions. We have limited time. I'm timing it, and then we have the quiz questions coming up for you. So please stay on. Can we have some questions from the audience, please, to any of them? And do we have a mic or? Yeah, you have a mic. Uttaya sir.
No, I don't have a question.
You're leaving.
Sir, thank you for coming, Mr. Mudaya.
It was an honor.
Great honor to have you, sir. Thank you.
Yes.
This question is for Akila. I should see you. So I'm a big Beatles fan. So why Imagine? There's just so many amazing songs out there. How come you chose Imagine for this? It's a great rendition, by the way. I love that.
I'm a huge Beatles fan, and I first listened to them in my aunt and uncle's house, my Chitty and Chittappa's house, on a vinyl LP, Sgt. Pepper's, when I was 9, and I used to sing along with every single song. And I think here it was just this was for an occasion, a talk on MS, and we were asked to do a rendition of Maitri Bhajata, Vedanta line. So it popped into my head at 2 a.m. I'm an insomniac, so it just popped into my head that 2 songs I've been listening to since I was a child were identical. One was by one of the secular songs by an atheist, and the other was written by Chandrasekhar Saraswati. But they were both identical in their message to humanity. So that was just another eureka moment, I guess. And I thought, let's see if we can do a mashup. That's the most current way of describing
What an
put
awesome
2 songs together.
What an awesome mashup.
So we created a mashup of My Dream Bhajata and Imagine.
Yeah, but if you want to search it on YouTube, you must key in Pipe Dream.
Actually, there's not a question I'm going to ask. Something I'd like to share about Ram. We used to meet off and on at Salon around, over coffee and cricket. Once in a while. This is years and years ago. I wonder if you remember this. You wouldn't. So, I used to talk about cricket and all that, and I used to ask him the questions. One of those questions you all of us ask, if only to listen to a soft story so that it makes our soft story a little easier to bear. So I asked him, Ram, have you ever felt bitter or disappointed or upset or angry that you never played test cricket? You always been the bridesmaid, never the bride. He said, of course I've been bitter, and of course I've been angry. Of course I've been disillusioned with the system, but damn it, man, I played the game I loved for 30 years. That should account for something. I never played for the prize, I played for the pleasure. Which is something I felt very, very profound statement to make from a person who's gone through so much. In my opinion, at that point of time, he was probably the finest off spinner the country has produced.
Absolutely.
And I'm a huge cricket fan. And it's such a, in today's monetary terms, Sivaramakrishnan and Ram Naran would probably fetch several crores in the IPL.
Thank you, Krishna.
Thank you so much, Krishnan. And he has been a great supporter of my wife's work too. He goes to all the plays and so on. Now, you're talking about cricket. I suddenly remember this whole thing started with AVIS talking about Ashwin and Virat Kohli seen here after 30 years. Very nice to hear that cricketers read today. Do they read enough?
I don't know if they read. Preeti, you had a question?
Yes. It's a common question posed to all of them. And I think when you go through some struggles in your life, you somehow feel that no matter what other people have gone through, what their stories or narratives may be, this is your own struggle. Yeah, somehow that might not be very relevant. It is a difficulty in assimilating and absorbing. So how do you make those experiences of other people relevant? How do you absorb that? How do you let that impact what you're doing?
Yeah, it's very difficult to separate yourself from your own, whatever you're going through. I think everyone here must have gone through difficult times. And once in a while, somebody else's experience guides you that this too shall pass. You learn it from somebody else who's gone through difficult times and survived those times. The problem is there are some people who never come out of difficult times. And I try to study some of those. And there are people who gave up. Not always, you can't pass judgment like that, but in quite a few cases I found that when adversity struck them, they simply gave up. They lost their self-belief. And the thing to do is, in my opinion, not to lose your self-belief, not to fight back. I don't know if AVIS will agree with me. I don't think you can fight nature, you can't fight the system, you can't fight the man next to you. You'll have to try and stay calm and do your work, do what you do. I think that is the best lesson I taught myself or I learned from others. And you read every ridiculous book you can read on self-help and whatnot. But almost all of them say, don't fight. And don't stop helping people. You always find somebody to help, even when you're in dire straits. And I think that's stood a lot of us in good stead. And I drew inspiration from other people, my own parents, and they've all gone through difficult times. Who hasn't? So they provide the inspiration. But there are times when things look totally hopeless. But then you're blessed. There is something protecting you, and you come out of it. So
behind every face, there's a beating heart, and behind every beating heart, there's a personal story. And I think every story is one of resilience and courage. And there are people who believe in a fight, in a good fight, and there are people that don't. I am one who doesn't believe in fighting. I used to believe that the only way to solve problems is to get under them and go and solve them. சிலதெல்லாம் முடியாது. முடியாதுக்கு இருக்கும்போது தன்னால முடியலைன்னு கவலைப்பட்டு இருக்க கூடாது. The grass will grow without you having to do anything. That's what the Buddha said. Sit calmly and the grass will grow. Sit calmly and this problem will go. Then you can resume your action. That's why, in every Shirdi Baba temple, there are only two things that you pick up there. One is faith, the other is patience. And faith is not in an external agency. Faith is in you, that if you have been created, you will be looked after. As Gauri pointed out, we are not created because of our choice. We are created choicelessly. So if you have been created, you will be looked after. Have that faith and be patient. Allow life to happen.
Two strange examples I remember. For example, a cricketer called Sudhir Naik, who played for India, got caught stealing a pair of socks. He didn't really steal it in Marks and Spencer in London. What a moment it was in his life. Every newspaper wrote about it. And do you know where he got inspiration? He was watching television and he found Richard Nixon facing impeachment or whatever. He said, if this man can do that, I can. And my inspiration strangely came from this gentleman who started Grand Sweets. He had failed at everything. This was probably his 15th attempt at starting a business. He was insolvent when he started it. And he became a roaring success.
Thank you. I can relate to that completely. I can relate to that completely. Next question, please. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, sir, I have one question to ask you, sir. I'm Purnima here. So I just came in. It's just almost 20 minutes since I came in, and I'm introduced by Ms. Lakshmi here. I have observed one thing, and I would like to pose a question to you, sir. So when I came in, you were asking questions to many of them. So from my observation, I saw that everybody reflected into their lives, into their minds, and gave their responses spontaneously. So I find that your questions are a very good and appropriate pointer towards the same, so that it facilitates that reflection. So my question is it spontaneous to you, or do you have any methodology? Is it something conscious?
Okay, to be very honest, I have some cue cards.
Okay.
There are cue cards, but I hardly look at them.
Okay.
The way I work, and that's a good question, the way I work is this afternoon at 3 o'clock, I had my tea and badam, and I went back to all the mails that we had exchanged, and I kind of made notes, and that's it. I think this is not so much about me. I think anybody can do it. That is bliss. The ability for your whatever you're doing to flow effortlessly. I think that is bliss. So what I do is I do prepare, because I have to manage time. You have to go home. We have to go home. We can't bore you. We have to take care of many factors over here. If 40 people are sitting and listening to us, it has to be engaging. So I do prepare, but I don't have to look back at what I've prepared. I'm holding cue cards relating to some announcements that I'm going to make now, so that I don't forget them. But the rest of it is spontaneous, and all the stories that we are hearing, and every month when we hear them, each perspective kindles something which urges me to share. So again, that part is spontaneous. But thank you for noticing that, and if you found it interesting.
I have one more to add, sir.
Yeah.
It's like this, like any happening, if it is made into, it could be made into a methodology. So it's a happening here, a spontaneous happening which is facilitated. So this facilitation can also be evolved into a methodology, so that it becomes very objective, and everyone who really aspires can do it. That is just reminding.
Definitely, there are two schools of thought there. Yes, it can be processized, it can be made into a methodology for the willing learner. But what I have learned from life, with no reflection on your question or observation, there are no methods to life. You just go with the flow.
I was just going to say, it needs a hell of a lot of effort to be effortless.
Most uncommon thing is common sense. So, any more questions? We have time for one last question. And we're doing great on time. And then we have two questions coming from our guests.
Oh, we have,
you forgot?
No, I didn't forget.
Okay. There are two questions coming from our guest. Yes, Chinu, yes.
Yeah. Ram, it's a very good thing that this too will pass. I feel in this catching game, this too will pass. I too can do it. It is another aspect of coming to terms with this catching. What do you say about that?
I too can do it was one thing, but I better do it because the alternative was to perish. So one had to do it. So I think sheer fear of extinction kept me going most of the time. Yeah, but what is the option? There are times when you feel that if you don't do what you must do, the only other option is to end your life. I mean, everyone has gone through that at some point.
No, but how about the word coming to terms with?
Coming to terms with is all about your life, everyone's life, I think. Every moment of your life, you have to come to terms with what you've been given or what you've created. I think you have to come to terms with it.
Coming to terms with is too many words. I think we can replace it with acceptance.
I think acceptance is a major, in my life I found it very helpful to accept and move on and try to change things for the better. But if you can't say I won't accept this, why me? I never once asked that in my life.
Awesome, that's fantastic. I think that's the most ridiculous question that we end up asking. It's a very natural response. So let's, we are close to the, we are at the 80th minute right now, so I am keeping time, and we will now go to the quiz questions. The mugs await you. We'll have two questions, one from Ram and one from Gauri. You don't have both Ram and Akila. Okay. You don't have a question?
Oh, you ask your question, we'll figure one out.
Oh, okay. Or you could ask one. Abhinav, you could ask one.
A quiz question.
Okay. Something interesting.
You said cricket?
Cricket? Yeah.
Yeah. You get these beautiful Odyssey Bliss Catcher mugs, so please do answer.
Yadav, you can't answer this question. Sorry?
Yeah, you can disqualify some people, obviously.
Last time I'm not but done.
Okay. No, I take it back. Chinmay, nice to see you here. Thank you. He's another Bliss catcher.
Yeah.
So I have a cricket question, simple quiz question. Everyone knows T20. Name one 30-over tournament, very successful one. 30-30, which has been not international, but domestic.
YSA trophy. YSA?
Yeah. YSA also, okay, I want the first one. The most popular one in Chennai, and there's an older one, which I don't expect anyone to answer, but the oldest 30-over tournament in Chennai.
Is it Moiswana? Was it Buchi Babu? Was it Sporting last time?
Who said Sporting last time? Yeah, it's later became Hitler Trophy.
Fantastic. So there we have the first. So Yadav, you didn't seize the moment and get the mug. Finally.
You can come and pick up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to get a
picture?
Do you want to pick up?
Oh, sure. Celebrate your birthday.
Okay. Now we want to complete the trivia for everyone's benefit.
The other Probably the oldest limited overs tournament in the world. We played at a place called Tripurithura, Kerala, near Kochi. It's a 30-over tournament. It is older than the Hindu group. And it's considered possibly the first limited over tournament in the world.
Wow.
And we all played in that. Many, Shivaramkrishnan and I have played.
Puja knockout.
Puja knockout.
Fantastic. So that's amazing trivia. I didn't know that. You know, there's somebody from
Yeah,
that part of the world sitting
I
there.
endorse that.
Yeah. You know about that tournament?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. So your question, please. What's your question?
Can be on anything, right?
Yeah. Think on anything.
Music, the arts maybe.
Arts,
I thought
history,
I-
whatever.
No, I didn't want. I have no question.
Anything in the world.
Someone can answer.
There's a biopic that Martin Scorsese took about a very famous musician, a documentary. Any guesses? Which famous musician did Martin Scorsese make a movie, a biopic about?
Mali?
Nope.
What's up?
Huh?
What's up?
The Mali is kind of warm.
Lal Gudi Jairam.
Pass.
Back to his master.
Give it,
Okay, I think what is called, this musician has the same first name as Mali.
Bob Dylan.
What?
Sorry. I didn't realize what I was
No,
doing.
you have to ask another.
Okay, you have to ask another
One more
question.
question. Sorry.
Ram killed it.
Ram, you want to mug or something? Give him a mug here.
He gets a mug anyway. He gets a mug anyway.
Sorry, sorry.
Ask him what you call him.
No, it's not an economy question. I'm just trying to frame the question. It's an interesting fact, and I'm trying to make it into a question. So this is something I had to learn for my British permanent residency exam. So what did India give the world in the world of cosmetics? It's something quite old, which is now, I think, most people don't remember it's from India, but it is, it's a very common product that everyone uses. Yeah, okay.
Shampoo. Who answered that? Hindu, see, you
Shampoo comes from advertising.
She's also a future. She's also a future Bliss Catcher. Watch out for her event with us.
Votes for the victim.
Yeah.
Page 3? Yeah. With you. India page 3 has one question.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I had a bit more time, I could have framed the question better. But anyway,
That is
so I
good,
mean,
but-
I suppose the fact is that shampoo actually comes from the ancient Indian art of using herbs to treat your hair.
Yeah.
Right.
So I didn't know about this.
I'll tell you what it is.
Yeah.
It's champa, something. It's an ancient
Champi,
word.
champi.
Champi, yeah. It's a Hindi word. When you massage your scalp,
Okay.
that led to shampoo.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Good.
So, thank you for that impromptu question.
And the interesting thing is, if you ever want British citizenship, this is one of the facts that you have to learn. I have no idea why.
Will they ask you this question?
Yes.
Okay, I'll remember to call you once again if I am applying for one.
That was a conditioner from Abhinav.
So as we close the evening today, I have couple of things to announce, and then but let me begin first by thanking T.S. Ashwin, our host, and his entire crew. Ashwin, can you come forward and give away our souvenir mugs to our guests this evening? Ram?
When are you featuring Ashwin in the show?
We have to. In fact, we've got requests from his team also that we have to. So, but knowing Ashwin, he will shoot the idea of it. So I'm glad Ram proposed it. So now I can officially discuss this.
Anyone who's mad enough to start a bookstore.
But you know, I want to tell you what Vani and I feel about this entire experience of hosting the Bliss Catchers event here. We all talked about ecosystem, we all talked about family, and I think without the Odyssey family, without Ashwin leading it from the front, we can't be putting up this show every month. You know, he does everything. It's just amazing. So, and we've competed with 5 major events today, and if you have come here, it's not just because we give you stuff to think about, but because there's a lot here that goes in to give us the space to do it, both literally and figuratively. So, on that note, let me quickly make a couple of announcements and then close the evening. The first announcement is that the next Bliss Catcher event is on the 26th of March, and we have the guests lined up over there. We in fact have guests lined up all the way till June. So the event is flowing pretty well, and we are already curating for July. Vani and I are also hosting another event called the Happiness Conversations, Heart of Matter Happiness Conversations, where we talk to people who have faced life stoically and dealt with their own insecurities and overcome their situations and have found happiness. So that series is at the Inco Center, and the next event in that series, it's a quarterly series, it's not a monthly series. The next event in that series is on the 12th of March, Saturday at 6:30 p.m. at Inco Center. And this time we are talking to people with special orientation. So we have people, Sunil Menon from a fashion designer and the founder of Savokaran, and we have a theatre artist, Angel Glady. And we'll be talking to both of them on happiness and how do they deal with the whole concept of being trapped in a different body and yet finding themselves. So that's the event happening on 12th of March. On the 18th of March, we have our new program which Vani and I are leading. It's a one-day workshop called Help Yourself to Happiness. This requires prepayment and pre-registration. So that's happening on the 18th of March at the Inco Center. So please do spread the word and help us with people that you can have attend our programs. So we all collectively take forward this message of happiness, being yourself and celebrating yourself. To conclude, I just want to thank Ram, Gauri, Akila and Abhinav. It was awesome. I told you it would be like a lounge conversation, and it was. So thank you, and there are no words for me to describe how much I learned from each of you. And remember your line that the adventure is the reward. I'll remember that line for a long time.
There are no other rewards, so the adventure had better
be the reward. Yes, absolutely. The adventure is the reward. You play for the pleasure. You play the game for the pleasure, not for the prize. The point that Krishnan attributed to Ram and brought up. So I just want to conclude by saying something that I picked up. A king was having a dream, and the king dreamt that he had become a beggar. And he was very disturbed, and all through the dream, he kept fighting the situation that he had lost his kingdom and he had become a beggar. It was a nightmare, therefore, no longer a dream. And finally, he woke up with a start because he tossed and turned, and he awoke. He woke up. And then when he realized that he was still pretty much the king, he started laughing. So Osho says, we have all fallen asleep. He says we are all in a dream. And in the dream state, we are fighting with the realities that we don't want to see. Because in truth, that reality doesn't exist. You are the king, you are not the beggar. You are the bliss that you seek. So toss, turn, awake, and you will find yourself. Thank you, everybody. And see you around. Thank you.
On behalf of all of us, we thank you, AVIS and Vani and Ashwin, all of you for coming. Thank you so much for coming. Anchal. and the staff of Odyssey, every one of you, thank you so much.
Thank you.